and he's got it away. That's 100 for Kärcher, that's 100 for Crowe, and they're onto the ground. Oh no! They're invading the ground. Crowe wants nothing to do with it. I can't believe this. They're spoiling what so far has been a magnificent occasion. The Kiwis can't help themselves. They're charging out onto the ground.
G'day there and welcome along to the first episode of Kärcher's Blast from the Past, a 4-part series where we look back at seminal and in some cases forgotten moments in the magnificent sporting history of this fine land. We will first be taking you back to the giddy summer of 92 when the young guns went gonzo, to the festering mud bath of Carlaw Park, then on to an astonishing but mostly unremembered day at Mount Smart during the bitter year of 1981 before finishing where it all started back at Eden Park for the World Cup, but this time in a different code. This is the Blast from the Past, brought to you by the sports lovers at Kärcher, the world's #1 water blaster, the perfect machine to get the outdoors sorted this summer.
This is the Agenda Podcast's Blast from the Past. Episode 1, Eden Park, 1992. The opening match of the Cricket World Cup. New Zealand v Australia.
Martin Crowe to face on 99. 2 balls to go in the innings. He's chopped it down. They're running through. Cairns has made it.
Proudly brought to you by Kärcher Water Blasters. Get ready for summer and clean 50% faster with Kärcher.
Rightio, it's the first episode of Kärcher Blast from the Past, and it's a great pleasure to welcome into the studio Dylan Cleaver and Jeremy Wells.
Thanks for having us. I'm so looking forward to talking about this. This is a seminal moment in my life.
Yes, so the first episode is Eden Park, February 22, 1992. It is the opening match of the Benson and Hedges Cricket World Cup, New Zealand versus Australia.
Who will it be? Who'll be the kings? It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Who'll rule the world?
Hello and welcome to the 5th World Cup and this opening game between Australia and New Zealand at Eden Park, Auckland. A lovely ground, slightly odd shape, but it looked, according to Tony Gregg, to be in superb condition with a fast outfield and a pitch a little bit damp, could be a bit too paced and might be difficult on which to chase runs. Martin Crowe, the New Zealand captain, won the toss and decided to bat. These are the team cards. First of all, the Australians, Alan Border leading, Geoffrey Marsh, the vice-captain, Dean Jones, and Mark Waugh, Tom Moody, Steve Waugh, Ian Healy, Peter Taylor. There's Craig McDermott and Bruce Reid, and Mark Taylor is the 12th man. And New Zealand have sprung a surprise. They're talking about having Rod Latham in at #1 with John Wright, the experienced player. Latham is a very good all-rounder, strikes the ball very hard. Then there's Jones, Crowe, Rutherford, Harris, Smith, Cairns, Patel, Larson and Watson. And Mark Greatbatch is the 12th man.
To set the scene a little for this opening of the World Cup was to be co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand. It had been a miserable summer for the Black Caps.
Oh yeah,
who were then known as the Young Guns.
Like Hogan, Rudder, Paddy and Jed. Young Guns. They're young, they're raw, and they're fighting for their lives against the best. Young Guns. But they've got talent and guts. They'll play their hearts out, every man. Young Guns. They're our team. So come on, New Zealand, let's give the boys a hand. Young Guns. Young Guns. Young Guns. DB Draft Limited, proud sponsors of the New Zealand cricket team.
Were they that young?
Okay.
They have names like Hogan, Rudder, Paddy, and Jed. I mean, Hogan, how old was Hogan? 30?
He was 30.
He was 30.
About to turn 30, yeah.
Rudder was probably maybe a little bit younger than Hogan. Maybe he was 28.
He was one of the youngest.
Yeah.
At 28.
But he'd been around since he was smashed over by the Windies in like 1985 or something.
Yeah, John Wright was not young.
How old is John Wright? Like 37?
Yep. He was 37. He looked 37 when he was about 23 as well. So but by that stage, he was looking real old.
And yet Schmitty, Ian Smith, he was 35.
He was on the verge of retirement.
Yep. You had Andrew Jones grumping along at 32.
32, yep.
And Dipak Patel.
A young-looking, but not young Dipak Patel, 33. Yeah.
And Rod Latham, Gavin Larson, they weren't spring chickens either?
All about to turn 30 or 30.
I just the marketing though for me. Can you remember this poster here where they're all got their tracksuit tops kind of slung over their shoulders, looking all cash? The only people missing from this team is, as you pointed out, Hadley and Chatfield.
Yeah, I think that was the whole marketing around the young guns was the fact that Richard Hadley had retired.
Yep.
And obviously he loomed so large over the team in the 1970s and the 1980s that most people were watching just because they knew we had this Rolls-Royce bowler in our team, world's best bowler. And then why were people going to watch cricket? Turns out people were actually really, massive crowds were still turning up to cricket in those days. But just looking at that younger side, something that strikes me, was anyone friends? Why, was there a single friendship in that team?
Smithy and Crowe were on and off, weren't they? Loved each other one day, couldn't stand each other the next day. But and I guess Batch has said that he always looked up to Hogan. They were both Auckland grammar boys. I think Batch came in after Hogan and said, look, if I can be half the player Crowe was, I'd be a brilliant cricketer. But no, not really.
To answer that. Hey, so but let's go before. This is the lead up to this World Cup. Obviously, they've been branded the Young Guns. They've got the flaming red ball. Remember the flaming red ball logo?
Yep.
DB Draft all over it.
Out of the yellow cans, the DB Draft, which
Yep.
they ostentatiously used to drink at their post-match press conferences.
Great. They were simpler times.
Yeah.
Simpler
Different
times. Different times. So a strong England team had beaten New Zealand 2-0 in the tests leading up to this and smashed us 3-0 in the ODIs. And the first ODI at Eden Park, New Zealand managed 178 for 7 off their full complement.
This has been quite a fruitful over for New Zealand. So the last ball of the New Zealand innings. Pringle on his way. He's hit this one out on the onside. Hicks in very quickly. They'll try for 2. It'll be a struggle. Not out, says umpire Steve Woodward. So 2 more to the total. Well run by these two. But it drags New Zealand's score through to 178. So not a bad result after a pretty dodgy middle order collapse.
Well, he's trying to lay a platform, right? He's trying to lay a base. Look, that turns out that keeping wickets in hand later on has become a crucial part now of one-day cricket. If you've got wickets in hand, you play quite well. In those days, you wanted to try and... I mean, in those days, a good start would be anything over 4 runs and over, you would say is a really good start.
Yep.
Anything over 3 is a solid start. Anything under 3 is you'd say the bowling team's on top.
50 for 1 after 15 was your benchmark, wasn't it?
Yep.
So in the second ODI in Dunedin, they scored 186 for 7 off their allocated 50 overs. So a small improvement of, just under 10 runs. So you could say they were going in the right direction. But they still got absolutely pumped.
Yeah, cricket was different, as Jerry mentioned. You also got to remember that there was no T20 format, so it was one day and Test cricket, and the talent pool was so small, or the white ball game was so underdeveloped that you just almost naturally plonked your Test 11 into your ODI cricket 11 and asked them to play slightly differently.
Yeah,
and some of them just weren't cut out for it. Like in today's environment, a John Ryder and Andrew Jones wouldn't get near a white ball side unless they were instructed specifically that you've got to play the game totally differently to how you play Test cricket.
Yeah, you're right.
But some teams like Australia were definitely early adopters to the different formats, different players' style. You had your War brothers who they'd play quite a different. Dean Jones was another guy who was naturally
he loved the one-day game.
Yeah, struggled to go the other way. Maybe.
Yeah, totally. And Simon O'Donnell, who played in Australia, he was a one-day specialist.
Yep.
Later on, Michael Bevan. There were guys who played in those teams, and actually, England had a couple of guys like Dermot Reeve.
Yeah.
They had a couple of one-day specialists as well. But
he was a specialist off-field too, but that's another story.
But we didn't have the talent pool, as Dylan said. There was no way. I mean, we just had guys who basically could play international cricket. They were good enough to play international cricket, and then there were a whole lot of people who weren't.
Well, it was just basically 16 of our best cricket players, weren't they?
Yeah.
They've just got 16 of our best cricket players, put them in a squad and said, you're just going to play the World Cup.
And that ethos filtered down to our first-class cricket, our Shell Cup 11s for the major associations were exactly the same as the Shell Trophy 11s. So,
Right.
we just didn't have white ball specialists.
So they were playing a style of cricket that was so turgid and outmoded. It led to a shocking intervention on the eve of the World Cup, didn't it, Dylan?
Look, it's a genuine sliding doors moment here, as the selectors believe that the biggest problem that New Zealand had at that time was not the fact they couldn't score runs. It wasn't the fact that we weren't taking wickets. It was the captaincy. And Joseph Romanes, who actually wrote a really spiky, unauthorised biography called Martin Crowe, Tortured Genius, wrote it up as this.
Great title, by the way.
Yeah,
The Tortured Genius.
And it's true. I mean, it's very accurate.
Yeah.
The story of New Zealand's triumphant run through the 1992 World Cup, one of the most glorious passages in our cricket history, really begins at 6:20 p.m. on Sunday, February 9th. Ultra specific there, Joseph. When Martin Crowe walked into a meeting at the Basin Reserve with the three national cricket selectors, Don Neely, Ross Dykes and Bruce Taylor. It was, what a rogues gallery that is.
Yeah.
It was that meeting, less than a fortnight before the World Cup began, that provided the impetus for a most remarkable turnaround in Crowe's and New Zealand's cricket fortunes. So basically what happened was the selectors told him they thought that his health, he was battling with what turned out to be salmonella and a knee injury as well, and his poor batting form was taken away from his leadership, and they wanted to know if he'd be available for the World Cup as a batter only if they nominated someone else. And he called their bluff. He said, "No, I won't play under anyone else." He then went home and spent apparently hours on the phone crying to brother Jeff, who told him to stand firm as well. Jeff had been dumped from the captaincy probably a couple of seasons before that as well.
1988.
Yeah. So knew the situation well. And so that story is actually fairly well known. It's been told numerous times since. What wasn't so well known was the dissatisfaction with Crowe's leadership wasn't just at an admin selectorial level. It actually filtered through the team, and that ODI you mentioned in Dunedin when they scored a paltry total, on the plane on the way down to that, Crowe was ambushed by Jed Jones and Sheikh Wright. They commandeered one of those, three seats of three at the back of the airplane, plonked Crowe in the middle, and absolutely gave it to him. They didn't hold back. They said that he was letting himself down the way he was leading the team, too moody, too mercurial, up and down, and Wright basically told him that his man management was a disaster, and if he didn't lift that, he was courting disaster. And Jerry, I guess people don't see that from Crowe now. When you look back at Crowe, you see this batting god, this flawless batting genius who filled the crease and that, but at the time there was actually quite a lot of speculation around Crowe.
Oh, there was. I remember specifically there was chat that his toilet bag was larger than his cricket bag. And in those days, that was really dog whistle for questions around sexuality. You know, that meant if you had a large toilet bag, then your sexuality was called into question.
They were different times.
I mean, John Wright, you could never call him into question.
No.
You know, in terms of his grooming style, I mean, I don't even think he put a comb through his hair most of the time. He didn't carry a comb with him.
There was a reason he was called Shake, because he just put everything into his coffin and just shake it until it fit and just close the lid.
Yeah, but also let's paint the picture as well of New Zealand in those days. It was a much different country. There was a big difference between people who were brought up in Martin Crowe's situation in Auckland,
Grammar boy.
Metropolitan Auckland. And then people like John Wright, who were brought up, I think he was Darfield, John Wright.
Rural Canterbury,
rural Canterbury. And there was no internet. A lot of people in Canterbury probably would have never travelled to the North Island, let alone to Auckland. Domestic travel was expensive in those days. So people just stayed in their regions, and so it was quite regional. So I think a lot of people would have looked at Martin Crowe and thought, good looking, flashy, elegant Aucklander. He typified a Aucklander, temperamental.
Big bath bag.
Huge toilet bag.
Appeared in women's magazines with glamorous women.
He wore blue Stratos. He possibly, maybe he would have worn aftershave. Now that would have really differentiated him from a lot of the other players. A lot of the other players wouldn't have even worn deodorant. He wore both.
Anyway, so okay, that paint that picture. But the squad was named, and Crowe was duly named the captain of the World Cup team. Now, the World Cup format was interesting because there was a complete round robin replacing the group stages side of it. So it also kind of threw in a good kind of chaos was that South Africa for a very long time were readmitted after 21
years.
21 years in the wilderness due to the apartheid regime. It also saw a change in the way of chasing totals were calculated in run chases. So it's going from average run rate to most productive run rate. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, so when it rained previously and you were chasing, say New Zealand scored 202
Yes.
in their 50 overs, that's a run rate of 4.
Yeah.
So if the chase was reduced to 30 overs, the total, multiply that by 4,
Right.
chase is 120, 121.
Right.
And that's a massive advantage to the team chasing because they've got all their 10 wickets in hand. So the organisers thought a much fairer way of doing it was say that that same scenario, New Zealand got 200, the chase is reduced to 30 overs, they would just take New Zealand's most productive 30 overs and then make that the chase for the team batting second.
Wow.
And
this is pre-Duckworth-Lewis.
It is pre-Duckworth-Lewis. And so that people thought, oh, yeah, that makes sense, actually. Yeah, we just take out the worst 20 overs, but it would have disastrous effects later in the tournament. It didn't really affect New Zealand, but most notably when rain was actually happening during the chase and the chase kept on getting reduced, you kept on taking off the worst overs. So
That's right. I forgot about that.
It reared its head. We might as well just go forward to the second semi-final. It reared its head most ugly in the second semi-final where South Africa had got themselves to a situation where they need 22 off 13 balls.
Yeah.
Then they went off for rain again, and suddenly it was 22 off 7 balls.
Yeah.
Then it rained a little bit more, and it was suddenly 22 off 1 ball.
That's right.
Because they had maidens. There were maidens in the England innings, which they just chopped away. So that was the inspiration for Duckworth-Lewis, but that's just a quirky little digression. I guess.
But it was like there was so many different venues in this World Cup, wasn't it?
Amazing.
Across Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah. We had World Cup games in New Plymouth, in Albury, in Ballarat, Berry, Mackay and Napier. And I guess the funniest one was, you make the World Cup squad for Sri Lanka. It's the greatest moment of your life. You're going to Australia and New Zealand and you're going to play in these cricket cathedrals in those countries. Their schedule took them to New Plymouth, Hamilton, Mackay, Wellington, Adelaide, Berry, Ballarat, and Perth.
That was because they couldn't prepare pitches in those days? Was it the fact that the pitches? There must have been a reason why they weren't having them at these other stadiums. So you couldn't go back to back. Like you just couldn't prepare enough pitches.
Yeah,
it must be.
I don't really know what the motivation is, unless they really thought that this was a game for the people. This was a tournament for the people. I mean, I guess when the original World Cups were in England, they played all over the show there too, except that those grounds are established county grounds. There's just 17 or 18 of them, so they've got history and prestige. Whereas I don't even know if there's been a first class game played in Berry.
Well, it's also weird that you would have your World Cup opener, which we'll talk about in a few moments, at Eden Park. That's a strange thing when you've got those huge grounds. And I remember the opening ceremony very, very well. It was just a couple of kids wandering around with flags. that was all it was. It was like some teams and some people walking around with some flags. It was so low key.
Well, but that's probably been the backbone of opening ceremonies ever since. They've just increased the amount of children and increased the amount of flags. Because as far as I'm concerned, opening ceremonies are kids with flags. And a bit of choral music, and that's about it. But New Zealand did have quite a few matches, and they were blessed with being given the opening match against Australia, of all places. You'd think at that stage Australia would have flexed and said, no, we're going to have the opening game in Australia. But New Zealand was going to have the first game of this World Cup, and it was going to be at Eden Park against Australia.
Quid pro quo for Australia getting the final.
Right. Okay. What was the shape of Eden Park then? Was it the same as the postage stamp it is now?
No, it wasn't. In those days, the pitch ran northwest to southwest. It's northwest to southeast. Sorry. Yeah. So it ran from what used to be a very, very strange sort of a white nothing stand.
Oh, that little old Panasonic thing that came out in the corner?
There was the Panasonic stand. That was at square. That would be at square leg.
Right, okay.
But there was it was a kind of nobody was allowed to sit in it because it was a sight screen. Yeah. So it was a sight screen stand.
And the radio booth at the top.
Yeah,
of
the
it,
commentators sat at the top of it, and then of course you had the old Western stand, which was just an embankment in those days, and then in those days there was the old members stand, which was still there. Remarkable that was still there. And then,
was that the one in the corner?
Yeah,
right.
That sat in the corner. That's now in the second
in the outer oval.
In the outer oval. It's a Bert Sutcliffe stand now, I think. And then of course you had the south stand, was exactly kind of the same as what it is, slightly different. And then of course the terraces, which in those days they were low. They went back. If you were at the back of the terraces, you may as well have been in Epsom. You were so far away from the action, but it was an amazing place to watch cricket because there was so much action, so much atmosphere, and of course no security in those days. Instead, the police used to turn up, but the police didn't used to sit at the front. The police stood along the back because they really wanted to watch the cricket.
Yeah, I do remember that, and there was the big kind of big tall hats. What was it? The kind of
the tit hats,
the titty hats, and just stand at the back. Oh, and they'd be like the very last option would be intervening. They'd be like.
They'd come down and have a word with you first, and say, "Look, settle it down."
Which is why you got pitch invasions for everything. Like,
there's no one on.
On really loose occasions, you get a pitch invasion for someone getting a 50. And I mean, certainly in this game there are pitch invasions, and the ground was quirky, wasn't it? It had these really deep pockets.
Yeah,
still does. There's a couple of deep pockets.
But fine leg, if you were a right-hander and you were batting at the southeastern end. Fine leg was essentially the short boundary square on the leg side was just ridiculous.
It was just beyond the 30-metre circle.
It was tiny.
And can you imagine? I do remember that because, I think Martin Crowe scored a lot of his runs there with that pull shot as well. But people sitting in that front row, how someone didn't die during those early days because they were pretty much fielding at a kind of a fly gully situation.
Totally. I was sitting not far from there. That was
really
because at my seats, I was going with my friend Simon Dykes. His dad was Ross Dykes, and he was a selector, and he got these great seats. But we were reasonably close up there in the south stand, but in the bottom tier.
Oh, okay. We're going to get to the game, and we're going to get to your experience. But we need to talk briefly about the Australian team that we're coming up against, who probably saw the form of the New Zealand team leading up to it, saw the calibre of player, and thought, this is going to be ceremonial. This is an opening game. We're going to beat New Zealand, head back to Australia, get rid of the rest of our opposition, and win this thing. So, looking at their team,
they're defending world champs.
Defending world champs, right? So you've got the War brothers, the twins,
very young,
very young twins. Steve and Mark War. They're batting at 6 and 7. Yeah. Those two.
Their batting lineup was, for the day, awesome. Like Marsh and Boone were a celebrated one-day opening partnership.
Great combination.
One of the right. Both right. Sorry.
Both right-handed, but one of the great opening combinations. They were great runners between the wickets. They could push singles. Yeah, really good opening combination when you came across those two. And then Dean Jones at 3.
Amazing one-day player.
Great one-day player, batted outside of his crease, took the attack to the bowlers, had all the shots.
Yeah.
Brilliant puller of the ball, great cutter, great driver of the ball. Would go over the top if he needed to be. And a superb runner between the wickets.
Yeah. And then Border coming in at 4.
Border just played the right innings for whatever situation he was in. Didn't always look beautiful doing it, but he was just an amazing player. They also had an awesome new ball attack with McDermott swinging it away from the right-hander. Bruce Reid, lanky, cousin of the late John F. Reid.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
No, he was an underrated bowler, Bruce Reid. Tall.
Unhittable in his day.
Yeah, he'd get extra bounce, incredibly accurate. Martin Crowe, interestingly, he always struggled against Bruce Reid. In fact, I think Bruce Reid hit him in the jaw, broke his jaw once.
Yeah, well,
spit his chin, and
yeah. He would bowl. He'd just bowl a little bit fuller than other bowlers and get the extra bounce, and he'd nip it around off the same. Really good bowler.
He was about 6'7", wasn't he?
Yeah.
6'7", 6'8".
He could not bat a lick, and he could not field. In fact, he was the guy with the famous Chris
Pringle.
over.
He
at
couldn't
the death.
hit it off the block.
Could not hit. But yeah, amazing. If there was a weakness in this Australian team, it was the bowling behind McDermott and Reid. Like the Wars did a lot of bowling back in those days, and they were functional, wobbled it around a bit, right arm, medium paces. This was before Mark Ward turned to off spin, and they had an off spinner who looked like an economics teacher, a guy called Peter Taylor.
Yes, Peter Taylor's he used to come in full wind up, doesn't it?
Peter who?
Full wind up. Yeah.
He'd sort of pump up with the two hands to get the rhythm.
Yeah. He wasn't very good though.
Nah, he was rubbish. He was weird ginger dude.
So was there a sense then, if you got through the new ball with McDermott and Reid, that potentially
that was your opportunity?
That was your opportunity. So if you could survive the opening spell of those two, you've got some pretty handy cricketers, but not life-threatening. You haven't got Pat Cummins coming in at first change, have you?
No.
So anyway, okay. So we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk the actual match and how that pans out. We have the opening ceremony. We have a couple of kids and some flags.
Some flags, yeah.
Walking around the ground, obviously representing each country, I'd say. With their
I
flag.
don't even know if they did. I think there's probably some countries that missed out, to be honest. It was their budget.
Couldn't
was
find
counting.
11 Sri Lankan kids.
Well, nobody was counting.
I'm surprised that
Nobody cared about Sri Lanka in those days.
I'm surprised that Benson and Hedges didn't get involved in someone walking around smoking ciggies on
Well, was it the
Throwing
question?
out cartons and
The question for the panel, was it the last cigarette-sponsored World Cup? I mean, there was Wills, who I think sponsored maybe the 95 World Cup.
Yes, that's an Indian
in
tobacco.
India, I think. Was
and
the
a lot
last,
of bats.
Yeah, and a lot of bats. But maybe that was the last one. But B&H, I mean, they added a bit of class to the affair, didn't they?
Right, so Martin Crowe, he wins the toss.
Yeah.
And decides to bat.
Yeah, which wasn't a regularly done thing then. Always seemed to... The prevailing feeling was it was always an advantage to chase, to know what you had to
know the pace you had to go.
Yeah.
So do you think that Crowe immediately got buyer's remorse?
Yeah, quite possibly. I remember the first three balls of this World Cup vividly because, I didn't move. Once the cricket was on, that was me. 2 wides down the leg side, one quite a big wide. Third one, leg stump line as well. Righty shuffled across to try and nudge it down to fine leg.
He does.
Which was his get out of jail shot.
Yeah.
And missed it, brushed the thigh pad, I think, and clipped leg stump.
He's bowled him 2 wides and he struck. That looked to me as if that ball hit the inside of the bat and then came back onto the stumps. But what a start for Australia. And how unlucky can you be? John Wright, all that experience. He's 37 years of age. Let's have another look.
Yes, the 2 wide, he exposed his leg stump. It must have hit the glove or the bat handle and come straight back onto the leg stump. McDermott can't believe his luck, and it's a great breakthrough. New Zealand 1 for 2.
It goes down in the book as a golden duck, but is it a golden duck?
First legit delivery.
It's not, actually.
I don't think it is.
You've just intimidated the opening bowler into bowling 2 wides.
Yeah.
You deserve that.
Were you at the ground or were you watching?
No, I was watching this one on television.
You were just saying, Jerry, you were there?
I was there.
Yeah.
And I remember that very, very well. And because the crowd wasn't as big as you think it would be at the start of the game. It built over the course of the game. And I haven't watched it for a number of years, but I just remember it was, weirdly enough, nowadays you'd be opening of the World Cup, it'd be huge news. In those days, news didn't always get through to people quite as easily, and World Cups just weren't as big.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of promotion behind them.
I was high in the South Stand. A friend of mine's dad had taken me along to that one.
That could be heard 2 ways. That.
What's that? High in the South Stand. I was 10 years old at that stage, so I wasn't quite in the realm of getting home full lizard. No, I lie. I was probably, what was that, 92? No, I was actually right in the middle of it. I was 14. But no, I can distinct. But there's only a few things I can remember from that match, and one is John Wright being bowled round his legs. I didn't see the first 2 deliveries. I just presumed that was the first delivery that got him out. And there's a couple of other things that I remember that are ingrained in my mind, which we'll get to. But looking at that, in comes Andrew Jones.
Yeah.
So at the crease, you've got Andrew Jones and Rod Latham, and they flatlined for what I'd say 20 minutes or so.
Well, Rod Latham was a surprise selection in that squad.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't playing had he played in the England games? I don't know if he did. He was new into the squad. Certainly, he was a bit of a bolter.
You might be right, actually. Batch might have played them and was poor and had a terrible summer.
No, I think that's right.
Yeah,
Rock and Rod Latham was in there, and nobody knew much about Rod Latham. Batted with a county.
Yeah,
Always like a batter that plays with a county.
And has become almost this mythical figure. This almost cult hero-like figure of that side.
A bolter at the top of the innings, but he wasn't really.
No,
he wasn't at all. He benefited from later in the tournament. Mark Greatbatch, who was a bolter, who had nothing to lose. That was basically where Mark Greatbatch had got to.
Yeah,
but Rod Latham, I see in this particular in this game, him and Andrew Jones, they tried to steady the ship because they didn't want to. They'd already lost a wicket on the first ball, first ball, and they just noodled it around for how long?
Well, it was a good half an hour or so. Obviously, and the crowd were just basically sculling beers in anticipation of a short, depressing day at Eden Park, which they'd experienced against England. Jones was given out LBW to read.
Kaiser Hyatt, his finger went up so fast, it was like he was putting them out of the misery.
Well bowled. Oh, he's given him out, my goodness. That came as a surprise to the batsman. Well, I thought that bounced too much. My immediate reaction was going over the top. This is the replay. It's probably straight enough, but have a look where it hit him. He was going forward. What do you think, Bill?
Well, independent umpires are in vogue here in the World Cup. Put the finger up, did umpire eye hard, booing from the crowd. It's a bad start. It's 2 for 13.
And was that a bit high?
Blofeld actually mentioned that, I think, on the commentary. He said, jeepers, I don't know about that. But when you look at replay, no, it was motherless, actually.
Okay, all right.
It was, but those weren't typically given out in those days. If you pressed forward, got yourself on the front foot and hit you reasonably high on the front pad, it was never given out. But this one, Hyatt had seen enough.
Jeez, he got it up quick. That was the first I'd ever seen umpire Kaiser Hyatt. Never seen him before because in those days you didn't have international umpires umpiring in your countries. It was Fred Goodall firing and Steve Woodward. But and so Kaiser, I was like, whoa, this is weirdo. He really got in there with a finger and sent him on his way.
Latham muddled his way to 26 before nicking a long hop off Moody. Yeah.
Healy took a screamer that one-handed. And the interesting thing about Latham is remember him as this over-the-top buffer.
Yeah.
Where actually he did hit over the top over the offside.
His cover drive?
Yeah, which is quite rare. But he played like 33 ODI matches, and his strike rate was 57, and his average was 20.
Solid.
That is, I'd take it.
Solid.
I'd take that.
Solid.
Our memory of him just does not match up to the reality at all.
And
so 3 for 53 at this stage.
Yeah, so then the game is turned on its head. These are the two protagonists now at the crease. You have Martin Crowe, and you have Rutherford, Ken Rutherford at the crease. You couldn't get two more different personalities at the crease who are about to change this game. Now, just to reiterate the differences in their personalities, would you boys mind playing a game of word association? Jeremy, can you play the role, please, of Martin Crowe?
I happily do.
Yeah. And Dylan, you are going to have to play the role of the one and only Ken Rutherford.
I'm a man of the people, so I can do it.
Okay. These two roles are far too suited to you two. Anyway, let's start with, just whatever comes out of your head, you are playing, imagine yourself in the body of Martin Crowe, Ken Rutherford. We'll start with you, Jeremy, and then it's going to go to, with you, Martin, and then going to go to Ken. Alcohol.
A Penfolds Grange, a beautiful red.
Spates gold medal.
Okay, Martin, a hangover cure.
I'd start with biting a Spanish omelette, and then I'd possibly have a Barocca.
Ken?
Go to Roxburgh, Jimmy's mince pie.
Music genre for you, Martin?
Yacht rock, clearly.
Classic rock.
How do you relax, Martin?
I would relax by having a sauna at a very, very expensive place, maybe a cold plunge and then having a massage.
Okay. Ken?
I would find a pub with a TAB and game of pool.
Martin, where do you, in terms of where do you get your clothes? Where do you shop? Where do you get your threads?
Only a designer label in those days. The top of the range would have been Hugo Boss.
Yeah. Ken, where would you?
Farmers.
Okay, so you can see these two very mismatched right-handers. But they had their finest moment here. They put on 118. And that's particularly telling because obviously Rutherford had been dropped prior to this because Crowe wasn't a huge fan.
They didn't get on. Sometimes
nobody got on.
Yeah, they sometimes try to dress it up as just different personalities, but there was actually genuine dislike there.
It must be hard because when you play cricket, I played cricket up until the age of 19, seriously, or 18 or 19. That was the best part of cricket, was batting with your mate and talking it between the innings and then sledging some opposition. And I can't imagine being in a team where I hated everyone or I hated half of them or I didn't want to talk to half of them.
I guess the teams that you played in, though, you're probably getting people from a similar demographic.
Yeah, okay.
And these two were just so mismatched. The weird thing about this partnership, I shouldn't say weird, but they looked like they really were enjoying batting with each other.
Yeah.
They complemented each other perfectly in that innings. Ken was very, very strong.
On the cut shot.
Yeah.
Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Martin was pulling the ball really well that day. He got a little bit lucky early. He skied one and Border ran back and made a mess of it.
That's one of the enduring memories I have because he ran to square leg over his shoulder and got in a tangle. And he did a little bit of a pirouette, and it almost landed on his head.
Was that a Martin Crowe pull shot? Was that the fall away Martin Crowe pull shot top edge?
Yes.
I love that shot. I love the way he did the fall away pull shot.
And you thing is with that drop catch, you never saw Australians fail that badly and looks so Gumby.
That could be safe. It'll be a good catch if they get it. Border made the ground, but couldn't get himself into position. Very difficult chance, but that's two the Australians have put down today. First Tom Moody, and now the skipper Alan Border.
Very rare for Alan Border to drop a catch.
Yeah.
Such a safe pair of hands at mid-wicket and a great arm as well.
And the crowd.
Hitting the wickets. Could I suggest as well that part of the reason in those days where you had these weird mismatches in personality was actually around ego. And to get to the top level in those days, you would be a superstar. Like Martin Crowe was a superstar. He's a superstar teenager growing up. He was a superstar playing for Auckland. He was a superstar. There was a whole cult around him and people who knew about him. Then you get to the top of, you play for New Zealand, and you'd meet a whole lot of other superstars who'd been superstars in their clubs. And there was a huge amount of ego.
Yeah.
And then you had to have ego to play international cricket. Then you'd be coming across even bigger egos. Ego, I think, was the problem in those days.
And even Ruds was a schoolboy superstar too.
Yeah.
In a different environment, a much different environment coming out of Central Otago. But he was talked up massively when he was a teenager as well. And obviously the West Indies tour as a 19-year-old was incredibly humbling for him. But he had still, he had rich talent.
Yeah. So getting back to the match, Dean Jones dropped an absolute screamer. Can you remember that running around the boundary, diving full length? That was off Martin Crowe as well.
Yep.
So there was a couple of chances. Eventually, Ken Rutherford was run out by Mark Waugh. So was Chris Harris for a little cameo. Smithy comes in, gets a runner ball 14.
That was big in those days.
Yeah, runner ball 14.
Yep.
Yeah. He played the...
That was a bloody good runner ball 14, by the way. I remember that runner ball 14. That was right up there with some of the best runner ball 14s in New Zealand cricket.
Do you think Ian Smith was on his best nick then?
They hadn't worked out at that stage that you just bowl at his head. Like if you just bowled short and fast, he was terrified. But nobody had quite worked it out. I think they stupidly pitched it up.
Yeah, and he could cut half volleys.
Yeah.
He'd just give himself room and slice through the offside.
Yeah, at the end, that's right, that cut shot.
So that brought Chris Cairns, a very young,
a genuine young gun.
Yeah, he was a young gun, a genuine young Chris Cairns to the wicket. Now, Chris Cairns is from Chris Cairns' book, Chris Cairns. This is what it said. Chris was there to own the place.
Was he referring to himself in the third person?
I think so.
No, it was written by Hamish McDowell, a mastermind champion.
Oh, wow.
And Sailor of the Century.
Sailor of the Century,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So he says Chris was there to own the place. This was his destiny. He initially fed the strike to his skipper, but suddenly it was the last over. Crowe was on 99. Cairns hit 2 fours from the first 3 balls off Steve Waugh, which is the last over. Of course, you got to do that. The crowd was starting to go berserk, and I think Cairns thought it was because he was buffing the Aussies, but it was as much because he wanted Crowe. They wanted Crowe on strike. The Aussies started giving it to Cairns, telling him he was selfish and screwing things up for Crowe.
I love it. That's brilliant.
To his
psychology.
captain's surprise, Chris started to answer the Aussies back.
Yeah.
So classic Chris Cairns. Obviously, he was never going to back away from a few Aussies chirping him.
No, it was a really interesting last over because milestones meant so much more back then. It's really only in the Kane Williamson era where batting for milestones has become a dirty word.
Yes, but selfish, isn't it?
Yeah, but in those days, we would have definitely taken a Crowe 100 in New Zealand scoring 8 less off that final over than we would. And so people were getting really antsy. And because Eden Park was different then, off the 4th ball, it was quite a rare happening, and then Cairns found one of those really deep pockets.
Yeah.
And they ran 3, so it worked out perfectly. But make no mistake, Cairns was trying to hit that ball for 4 as well.
So again, a team that hates each other. He wants to keep him off strike, but he gets the strike. 2 balls to go, and Crowe plays one of the oddest shots. It was like a back foot little dab,
Like a late cut almost.
Yeah. Gets an under edge and just dribbles out.
Straight to gully.
Cairns, straight to gully, who's one of the Wars.
Yeah.
Cairns he's already committed. He's coming down the crease, full stretch dive. The War misses a direct hit, and chaos ensues.
Yeah, and I reckon it wasn't because he wanted Crowe's 100. He just wanted to face the last ball. But again, it just shows you how important milestones were. This is the penultimate ball of the over. Your captain is on strike on 99. He should be trying to hit that into the stands.
Yes.
But he's not. He's just thinking one thing. I've got to get a single. I've got to get my 100.
Well, he only got one more after this, didn't he?
He only got 4 in total.
Yeah.
In his career. It
They
was
were hard to get. They were hard to get 100s,
hard to
especially
get
if you
them,
weren't
yeah.
opening the. I mean, he didn't open the batting. Remember, he was batting at 4.
Yeah. Okay, so we end up on 248 for 6.
Oh well, hold on. There was a pitch invasion.
Oh, yes,
sorry.
sorry.
So Chris Cairns dives.
Yeah.
He should have been run out. Like, he definitely should have been run out. It was only about 10 metres away from the wickets. And then dives. The crowd go wild. They've decided to celebrate. Martin Crowe's celebrating. Next thing you know, half the crowd are on the pitch. So the ground has to be cleared for one more bloody ball.
And then they did it again.
Yeah,
and then they batted again.
Yeah.
They were halcyon days. And you could see Martin Crowe celebrating with people patting him on the back. I think someone fist bumped him or maybe
Well,
high-fived
all of a
him.
sudden, you realise what you were. You're a man of the people. You were doing it for the people, and the way that
Like a
people
gladiator.
Yeah,
Are you not entertained?
they'd gather around you. It was brilliant.
But 248 for 6. Back then,
Good score.
great score.
Good score.
Very good score.
Good score on an Eden Park pitch, which was slow in those days. The Patamahoe soil, very slow, and got slower and lower. Believe it or not, as the day wore on. And that's the thing with Eden Park pitches. That's why Martin Crowe batted first. I think it was a hot day. I remember it well. It was a beautiful day.
Not a lot of shirts on.
Which was really rare because it was perhaps New Zealand's wettest summer for a generation.
Right.
So,
All of a sudden, it came good.
Yeah, a lot of shirtless dudes running around with flags, dangerously steamed.
dangerously sunburnt.
Oh, yeah, no sunscreen back then. So, a decent total. But New Zealand, bowling attack. No Hadley. No Chats. Not even in Danny Morrison, who couldn't make the starting 11.
Yeah, I guess he missed out to Cairns in that they tended to pick one out and out, try to blast the top off the order, and they would have gone for Cairns's superior batting and fielding, is my guess. I mean, I think Morrison might have come back into that team later on in the tournament, and Cairns might have dropped out. But yeah, that's why it still felt 248. Don't get me wrong, was a good score.
But Aussies would have looked at that and looked at our bowling.
Dean Jones-led batting lineup against our bowling lineup, you'd still probably say the scales were just tilting in Australia's favour.
It was a good Australian. That was a good Australian team on paper.
So it didn't take long for Crowe to spring his first radical reinvention of the art of defending, and B, for New Zealand's total to look a bit skinny. So, the Dipak move.
Well, before that, Chris Cairns bowled way too many half volleys, and
He was trash.
he was rubbish that day, and he's going to be the first one to say it. I remember it specifically with David Boone and Jeff Marsh on fire early on, over pitching, too short. He's just bowled 2 lengths, which was Chris Cairns in those days did bowl 2 lengths a lot, at a decent clip, but didn't swing the ball, bowled dead straight. And the Australians just lap it up because it wasn't McDermott pace and it wasn't Bruce Reid bounce.
But what about the hubbub when the ball was tossed to Dipak Patel at the other end?
Yeah, that was a real shock.
Yeah,
and I remember being quite shocked with that.
And look who is opening the bowling at the other end. Now, I asked you who you thought. Now, you've got it wrong here.
I've got it wrong. I mean, how am I supposed to predict this? I mean, this is unbelievable, to say the least. A spin bowler with a new ball, hasn't been used. Of course, 2 balls are used in the innings here. And Patel is opening the bowling to the Australian opening batsman.
They hadn't even done it in any of the warm-up games against England.
Was it a hunch?
It was a hunch, apparently, that was foisted upon the team in the meeting before the night before the game.
By
Crowe?
Martin.
Martin Crowe said, yeah, we're going to open with Dip at one end. Apparently Dip was as surprised about it as anyone. And he was an interesting character, Dipak Patel, because he was born in Kenya, raised on the green fields of Worcester. He came to New Zealand as a very vaunted stroke-playing middle-order player, immediately hit runs for Auckland. He got a wonderful 185 in a first-class game for Auckland at Eden Park.
Well, I was watching his first ever game that he played in New Zealand, which was the Gary Troop benefit match at Western Springs.
Okay.
And people were talking about this guy, Dipak Patel. He's come over from Worcester, and he's going to be the next big thing. I mean, he's sponsored by Duncan Fernley. He was going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
And he wasn't quite.
No, and his batting never really hit the heights.
Yeah, because he batted at 4 in those days.
Yep.
I remember he got that Test 99, he got run out.
Run out by Derek Pringle, who couldn't even throw. He bowled it back in and still ran him out.
So while kind of Dipak did a nice job opening up, he kept it relatively tight at one end. New Zealand started poorly, and as you mentioned, Jeremy Cairns, he took a lot of tap, and he always talked about his destiny and owning the stage while he was batting, but he fluffed his lines badly with the new ball, and this from Chris Cairns as well, from our mate McDougall. His 4 overs went for 30 runs, and he was banished to the outfield. As he stood on the boundary with his back to the seething masses, he was filled with disappointment. He had bowled terribly. He was in the side as a bowler, but he had not done his job.
Yeah, well, 7.5 and over in those days was a hell of a lot. I mean, 5 was crazy. But it also paint the picture here because the afternoon was starting to warm up and the crowd had built by this stage. And so there's still an expectation around the ground. But at this point, everyone was slightly disappointed. It's like, okay. Terrible start.
Enter Messieurs Dibbly, Dobbly, Wobbly, and Wibbly. Willie Watson, Gavin Larson, Chris Harris, and Rod Latham. Did Watson hate being lumped in with these other dibbly-dobblies?
From what I've heard, absolutely hated it and still hates it to this day. And he's, of all those former cricketers that pop up from time to time, either as coaches or as media pundits or columnists, he's the one that just hasn't. He's disappeared off the face of the earth pretty much. I think he was a Grafton stalwart.
I think he worked for DB for a while.
Yeah,
as well. I think he was a rep for DB or something.
But I mean, he was better than a dibbly-dobbly.
Oh, he swung the ball.
Yeah,
quite a lot of swing actually. But at none for 62, they were looking quite good. Australia chasing 248.
Yeah, the dibbly-dobblies and the wibbly-wobblies. They bowled 31.4 overs between them. They took 6 wickets and conceded 144 runs with medium pace and in cases lower filth. Yeah. Now, I remember Latham's caught and bowled distinctly as he kind of belly flopped into the pitch, diving to his right. There that sticks in my mind as well. I'm kind of bounced off the pitch.
A sort of one-handed jab by Moody.
Yes, Tom Moody.
Sent it back.
I think the big turning point was, so I think at one, Jeff Marsh, obviously the first guy to get out at 62, he was caught Latham Boulder Larson. I don't remember that wicket particularly, but Dean Jones came in, batted quite well, 21 off 27.
Looked really good.
It always looked good, Dean Jones. I mean, 77 strike rate, just a quality player. So 2 for 92. Now, still at 2 for 92, Australia, I know in that dressing room, they would have been pretty confident, but they probably knew, the guys who'd come out, that actually the pitch was slowing down quite a lot by this
Holding
stage.
up quite a bit.
It was holding up. And these are Australian players who are coming off playing off bouncy Australian wickets. And there was a huge difference in those days between New Zealand and Australian wickets. And it was very hard to go from New Zealand wickets to a bouncier wicket and vice versa, because Australians would hang around a lot more on the back foot.
Yeah.
And if you just pitch the ball up a little bit more, and Richard Hadley always found this with touring teams that would come here from Australia, he'd just bowl full at them and they'd just automatically just hover around on the back foot and get a lot of LBWs, also thanks to Fred Goodall. But at 2 for 92, they were still going okay. Once Dean Jones got out, Alan Border came to the crease. Now, this is where, for me, it was the Alan Border dismissal where things all of a sudden changed.
Yeah, probably fair enough.
Alan Border does take some risks here. There's a fieldsman in the outfield. He's come around, taken the catch.
Chris Cairns, once again, to a great catch in the deep there. Alan Border went on the sweep against the spin, and as a result, the ball went up in the air a little bit, enough to carry all the way through to Chris Cairns. Very good catch and a very important wicket at this vital time.
Although the Dean Jones run out was sensational, throw from the outfield from Cairns.
That's right.
It was just a traceable on top of the stumps. He was probably in though.
Yeah, I think he was in, but that was the turning point.
Yeah.
That was the turning point. That run out.
There was no, because Dean Jones, he would call ones and twos. He'd be like just taunting the field with his running. And I think it gets to the stage where he's almost taunting the umpires as well. So I think in that case, anytime there's a 50-50 call on a run out, I think the umpires are going to give the guy who's trying to antagonise them.
Yeah.
I found that anyway when I was playing club cricket. I was like, fuck, I hate this guy. Even if he was on my own team.
So that run out was crucial. Obviously, Dean Jones, great throw from Chris Cairns. That brought Alan Border. But Alan Border caught Cairns bowled Patel.
Slog
3 off 9.
Slog sweep.
The slog sweep. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, there were guys coming in who probably felt like they needed to keep the game moving along. And the pitch was getting lower. It was getting slower. We just bowled wicket to wicket, and we just sucked the living crap out of it.
Yeah, and then I think, was it Larson trapped Steve Waugh, LBW?
Well, Larson certainly trapped Mark Waugh.
Was it Mark Waugh?
Mark Waugh, LBW, yeah.
And then the crowd started to come into it.
Yeah.
And they started to smell at, what was it? That would have been 5 for 125. The crowd is starting to smell an upset.
And then the famous Chris Harris off-balance square leg run out.
Well, things got a little bit dicey when Waugh and Boone batted together. Steve Waugh, sorry.
Because Boone's down there this whole time. David Boone's batting like a
he's
champion.
On 100.
Yeah, he's
gets
batting
to
like
100.
Batting like a champion.
Yeah, and on 100, you're right.
Yeah.
The run out, direct hit, one stump.
There's the 200 up for Australia. Ian Healy's a good worker of the ball. There's another chance for a run out. It's a direct hit, and there it is. Another wicket for Australia, for New Zealand.
That's Boone. That is a big wicket. David Boone, who's just scored 100, has been dismissed. A direct hit. Not sure who threw it. Probably Chris Harris, I would think. And now that really puts a lot of pressure on Australia.
Yeah, it goes down in folklore, that one, doesn't it?
They didn't happen that often in those days either. I think the unsung hero for New Zealand in this match was their fielding. Like we talk about dibbly-dobbly and Crowe's 100, but the fielding was bona fide sensational in this match. And I think the crowd did lift them.
Oh, the crowd definitely did. But I mean, that partnership of, 74 between Steve Waugh and David Boone for the 5th wicket.
6th wicket.
Yeah. 6th wicket. That was they were starting to pull it back, and I think Australia had the potential in those days. I mean, it's classic Australia. They're never out of a game.
No.
And
until Bruce Reid comes in.
And so all of a sudden they kind of came back in it. And then, of course, there was the Steve Waugh, caught and bowled Gavin Larson. Great
Brilliant.
caught and bowled.
Brilliant.
And then all of a sudden they were 7 for 200 chasing 248. Game on.
Yeah.
Game on.
So to end it was Bruce Reid. He skied a catch up to, I believe it was the crocodile hands of Andrew Jones.
Is that really not unique, but like primary school tactic of catching the ball, where you go at it with the arms apart and then you snap like a crocodile.
So Andrew Jones, Crocodile Jones takes the catch, and the day's third pitch invasion ensues.
Reid has hit it in the air. That's the end of the game. That's it. New Zealand has won. A surprise victory here, and 30,000 New Zealand supporters, well, a fair percentage of them are going to make a dash to congratulate their team as they head off the ground. Apart from the 14 members and the close members of the New Zealand team, there weren't too many New Zealanders who expected their team to be walking or running off the ground this afternoon with a surprise victory here in the first of the World Cup games for 1992.
That was brilliant. That final pitch invasion, it felt quite cathartic, not just for Crowe, who was obviously stoked, but for the country, because cricket was actually in quite a poor state, as we've talked about. The lead up against England was just disastrous.
Post Hadley,
the whole team hated
post
each other.
Tony. You know, those legends of the 80s were either gone or fading away.
People writing books about each other, score settlers.
It was kind of nasty stuff, but this was a real demonstration that at heart, during the summer, like, we're still a rugby country, don't get me wrong, but during the summer, New Zealanders still loved cricket.
Yeah.
And this pitch invasion at the end was a real demonstration of that. Like, you could just see joy, etched on people's faces.
Did you go on at the end?
No.
I would have 100% gone on, but I was too far up the back of the stands. So
we keep blaming your position.
I know.
mean, in those days, you could have gone anywhere. You could have basically sat on the sideline if you wanted to.
Oh, but I was with my friend's dad. He wouldn't let me move. He wouldn't let me move from my seat. So he was keeping a close eye on us.
It wasn't Ron Hensel, was it?
No, it wasn't actually. It wasn't rockin' Ron Hensel. It was Stu Brown, Dr. Stu Brown. He was keeping a close eye on me and Ben.
Well, you guys would have been out the back probably sinking beers. I bet you spent most of the time at the number 2 playing cricket. I mean, I spent quite a lot. A
lot of time in the tunnel, just being in the back. Yeah. So now we're going to take a quick break because we're going to come back and look at the legacy, both the short-term and long-term legacy of that match and of the World Cup. Right, so the immediate impact of that opening game was pretty significant.
It was huge.
Yeah.
New Zealand went from the ugly ducklings of the World Cup to going on this incredible roll that was only brought to an end by Motualu.
Yep, and Zamamo Haq.
Same place again.
Yeah.
That bloody Eden Park again.
Yes, I was at that game too.
Oh, we should have won that game.
Oh my God.
We should have won that game.
Seeing grown men cry walking around the boundary was a real eye-opener for a 14-year-old.
The momentum, that's the definition of gaining momentum during a tournament. And it started off with that initial victory against the favourites.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, we were just world beaters, South Africa, West Indies. We were beating everyone. It was
started in Hamilton, beat Sri Lanka by 6 wickets.
Yep.
10 balls remaining, and this was when the kind of a wrinkle came in that changed cricket, actually. Changed cricket globally, and that was Righty was struggling with a hammy, I think it was, in that game against
whole body.
Sri Lanka. And so for the next game after that, they dropped him, or they let him recover from his injury, and brought Greatbatch in. So Greatbatch came in for their third match, which was back at Auckland. It was against South Africa, and that was epic.
He smashed Richard Snell all over the park. They were going at sixes.
Yeah,
I mean, going at sixes.
Is that because he had the freedom of he had nothing to lose, Greatbatch?
Yeah,
didn't
he was in such terrible form.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it was Crowe or Wally Lees that gave him license, or he just decided in his own mind, hey, I might not get another crack at this. I'm going to make the most of it. But he hit 13 sixes at that World Cup. The next best was 6 by Martin Crowe.
I mean, it doesn't help that some of them were on that short boundary.
Yeah.
Or the Eden Park. Like, he hit so many.
That opening game only had 1-6. Steve Waugh hit the only 6 in that opening match. So for Great Batch,
that's how low and slow it was.
Playing batch ball.
He had the SS Turbo.
Yes,
he did.
Remember him charging the West Indian fast bowlers and putting it up into the West Stand. And Curtly, back then, if you hit a fast bowler for 6, it was like World War III.
Yeah.
It's Curly Ambrose.
I went to every single one of those games at Eden Park, and watching Batch just every game, that was so exciting.
Yeah. I went to the West Indies one, and the thing I remember most about that game, apart from the near fight between Batch and, was it Malcolm Marshall or Kirtley? One of them got really angry with Paddy for charging, and there was kind of like, that
can't do that.
macho posturing. The other thing I remember was sitting in the terraces, and someone has started this trend where they brought margarine tubs, and they knifed margarine out onto the lids, and we're throwing them like frisbees.
Yeah, that's classic.
So everyone walked out of the game at the end with these yellow streaks across their t-shirts.
Yeah, well, people used to get so drunk that they would vomit into the DB cups.
Yep.
And then they would when the
Mexican wave.
Yeah, when the Mexican wave went, they'd chuck up their vomit. I mean, it's disgusting stuff.
I was up in the terraces when a filleted carcass of a snapper came down in front of me. So someone had taken a snapper that had been filleted, head, tail, everything, and it came straight in front of me. I was like,
someone's hair was set on fire when I was in the terraces in that semi-final. Someone's hair went up. The police didn't bother about coming down for that.
Yeah. So I don't want to dampen the Great Batch love here, because he was unbelievable. He scored 313 runs at that tournament, average of 44, strike rate of 87.92. But it was actually Crowe's tournament.
Yeah.
Crowe was just unbelievable. He went 100 not out against Australia, failed against Sri Lanka, got 5, then 3 not out, 74 not out, 81 not out, 26, 73 not out, 3, and 91 in that fateful day against Pakistan.
Playing injured too. He was injured.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in a terrible way.
So 114
he was
average
player
and a 90
of the
strike
tournament,
rate.
wasn't he?
What's that?
Player of the tournament.
Yeah.
But his strike rate was better than Great Batch's.
It was.
Yeah. So
he just did it in a different way.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, but so the short term of the immediate effect of that opening game was quite profound.
Yeah.
Long term,
bugger all. It really was. New Zealand cricket was entering, arguably, I would say it's not even an argument, its worst period since the 60s. You can call it the interregnum period between the kind of Hadley-Crowe glory of the 80s and until you got to the kind of Stephen Fleming-led revival of the late 90s.
Yeah.
99 was the series win in England, wasn't it? That kind of got us back to it. But yeah, in fact, you could argue that long term this World Cup had a net negative effect, because we stuck with that dibbly-dobbly theory.
We doubled down.
Long after everyone had figured out how to get around it. We were still going there. Our next World Cup ended at the quarterfinal stage in India, which was actually not a bad tournament. Turner was the coach, and he was in his own way quite a radical thinker around the one-day game. Got to the quarterfinal. Chris Harris had his massive moment against Australia, but Mark Waugh had a bigger one.
Yeah. It also had an effect on the way that they thought about leadership going forward.
Yeah,
and because of Martin Crowe, and then that was part of the Lee Jamon era where they decided to put a guy who was supposedly that was Turner, a great leader, as opposed to the best
player,
gloveman that you possibly could, and then you move the best gloveman to number 3 batting, and it's like there was a lot of weird stuff that happened off the back of that.
Yeah. Semi-finals in 99.
Yeah, I remember that.
Jeff Allett's World Cup.
That was in England, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Disappointing thing about that was they lost to a trash Pakistan team again in the semis. They absolutely got thrashed in that semi-final. Allett had taken wickets all tournament.
Had it on a string.
Yeah.
Bring the ball back to the right-hander.
Yeah. One game he didn't was... One game him and Dion Nash struggled was that semi-final against Pakistan. They got to the Super Sixes in 2003 when they had that funny format, but they were hamstrung by not going to Kenya.
That's right.
So they didn't carry points over.
Right.
Because there was terrorist threats in Kenya. The only good thing about that tournament was Steve Fleming played that innings where he effectively knocked South Africa out.
That's right. He got 100.
Yeah.
That's a great innings.
Yeah. And it was only after that we got good at one-day cricket again. And that's when Braces came in, first under first with Fleming as his captain, and then Dan Vittori, and they're very smart in the way they approached one-day cricket. We became perennial semi-finalists. Unlucky in the West Indies, conditions changed at half-time.
Against
G Lane went over there. That's what happened.
I booked my flight before the semi-final. I was so convinced that Sri Lanka were going to capitulate to New Zealand, who were on fire.
Yeah.
I booked my flights and accommodation to Barbados, and then bought tickets and everything. I had to sit and watch Australia win the World Cup against
in the dark.
In the dark,
with Jeff Crowe making up the rules.
Yeah, correct. Mind you, I was so blind drunk it could have been light or dark, because I was in the party stand with unlimited rum, unlimited rum and Coke, and KFC quarter pack for lunch. That was included in the $100 US ticket.
Surprise semi-finalists actually in 11 in the subcontinent. They beat South Africa in the quarterfinal when Kyle Mills ran on in his netball bib to abuse Faf du Plessis.
Yes, that's right.
Made the final in 2015 under Bazball. That's the kind of New Zealand cricket's second or third revolution. There was no World Cup at all in 2019. And then then the semi-finals again in 2023.
Yeah, you're right. Everything changed from about 2007.
Yeah, there we go. Well, that is the Kärcher blast from the past. Eden Park, February 22nd, 1992, the opening match of the Benson and Hedges Cricket World Cup. It was New Zealand versus Australia. Hope you've enjoyed that. Our next episode, we are headed to Carlaw Park.
Carlaw Park, yeah.
Carlaw Park.
The mud bath of Carlaw Park.
This one here is an absolute cracker. Di Henwood will be joining us for that one. So that is in the next episode of the Kärcher Blast from the Past. Jeremy Wells, Dylan Cleaver, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This is the Agenda Podcast's Blast from the Past. Proudly brought to you by Kärcher Water Blasters. Get ready for summer and clean 50% faster with Kärcher.